New Jersey's Governor Christie is spending the day visiting storm-battered towns along the coastline. He's with us now from Seaside Park. Governor, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
A year ago, you were bracing for the worst. A year ago tomorrow, you woke up to find that the worst had actually arrived. Is there an image, is there one story from that day and the days that followed that haunts you still?
Well, there's a number of them, Matt, but I think the one that's still the most vivid in my memory is a couple of days after the storm going to Port Monmouth, New Jersey, and seeing a girl who at that time was 9 years old, Ginger Doherty, and first child that I encountered, Matt, in the few days afterwards that was crying. And I think seeing crying adults I had kind of braced myself for, but seeing a crying, scared 9-year-old child, like my 9-year-old daughter at the time, was incredibly emotional, and to this day is still very evocative to me. And as representative of all the children who felt so displaced after Sandy.
And here we are a year later, Governor. A lot of people are still displaced, still trying to find a way to make it back. They are saying that they're drowning in red tape at the town level, the city level, the state level, the federal level, from their insurance companies. The emotions boiled over at a hearing just last week, and some people, to be honest, pointed a finger of blame at you and said you deserve some of that blame. Do you?
Listen, Matt, I don't think that any of us are satisfied until every person is back in their home. Now, we've made incredible progress here in the last year. We had 346,000 homes severely damaged or destroyed. And of the 40,000 people who were initially displaced, nearly 30,000 of them have already received direct aid from the government. But I'm never going to be satisfied, Matt, until every person's back in their home. And
Whose head you're a guy who likes to bang heads together to get results. Whose heads need to be banged together to get that money to the people who still desperately need it?
Well, we're banging heads, Matt, at the federal level. Part of the problem, as you'll recall, was that it took 92 days for the federal government to act on aid to Sandy victims. That compares to 10 days for Hurricane Katrina and 17 days for Hurricane Gustav. And I told people at the time that that was going to add things onto the back end. And here's what it caused. No federal money started to flow here till the end of May, Matt. So it's essentially been now just 5 months since the federal money started to come, and there is enormous amounts of red tape that we call the Katrina hangover, because some of the waste and abuse, there's a lot more federal regulation that folks are having to deal with, and we're continuing to push back on that, but it's one of the realities of all the waste and abuse that happened in Katrina.
And you talk about that delay in getting funds to the people who desperately needed it. Boy, were you vocal about it at the time. You said, quote, "There's only one group to blame for the continued suffering of these innocent victims, the House majority and their Speaker, John Boehner." You said they used the citizens of this country like pawns on a chessboard, placed politics above the oaths to our citizens. Some of the other terms: callous indifference, selfishness, duplicity. You just made the rounds in Congress during the government shutdown. After a year, do you think that same group has learned lessons, or is it the status quo?
Well, Matt, I hope everybody down in Washington is starting to learn lessons. Although, I have to tell you the truth, you look at some of the stuff down there and you think maybe they haven't. But I think both parties have to get back to work and start talking to each other and working with each other like we do here in New Jersey. I have a Democratic legislature, but we've accomplished a lot here because, yeah, we yell and scream at each other at times, but then we sit down around a table and we get things done for the people who elected us. And I think there's too little of that spirit in Washington, D.C., even today.
And yet you have gone out of your way to praise the president. I mean, the enduring image of you two touring the devastation together. You said you talked to him every day for 10 days after the storm, and that when you called him with a problem, it usually got fixed in an hour. You went on to say that he seemed emotionally impacted by what he saw, and he would call you just to see how you were doing. Contrast to what you have also said about members of your own party in Congress. Why the difference?
Well, I think sometimes these kind of crises bring out the best in an executive, and I think that may be what happened with the president at that time. But, the fact is, you know me, Matt, I call him as I see him. And when people ask me questions, I tell them the truth as I see it. And back a year ago, the president kept his word to the people of New Jersey. And if I was asked about it, I was going to say that, regardless of the politics, and be critical of my own party when they were coming up short for the people of New Jersey. The bottom line is, my job is to stand up for the people of New Jersey and fight for them. And that's what I'm going to do, regardless of the politics.
Finally, you had to cancel Halloween 2 years in a row, once for Sandy, once for a blizzard. I guess it's on this year. Most important question. What's your costume?
It's funny, Matt. This year, I'm actually going as Savannah Guthrie. I don't understand why, but I'm actually going as Savannah Guthrie this year. So it's going to be interesting. I'm sure
you, Governor.
Yeah. Take it from a guy who's dressed as a lady a couple of times on Halloween. That's going to stick with you, Governor. I can tell you.
I understand that, but I figure if I pick Savannah, I will endear myself to the people in my state because they love her here. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And
I don't vote in New Jersey, Governor. Just so you know. I know election day soon.
Savannah, don't worry about that. There's 7 days left. We can work that out.
Governor Christie, thanks very much. Good luck to you folks.
Matt, Savannah, thank you very much.